or good evening, everyone. I'm Sherry Scarborough. Thank you for coming to the West Boca Community Council. Tonight we're going to hear from Palm Beach County Emergency Management. We're going to do a couple things before we do that. I'm going to introduce some of our guests. We have Karen Sipperstein here, who is running for Circuit Court Judge, Group 23.
Hello.
Hassan, will you say your last name?
Hassan Jahangir, running for District 92 State House.
Thank you. We have Rodney Stratham from Palm Beach County Clerk and Comptroller. Thank you for coming.
I left on the table there's a thing called the PAFR, which is the checks and balances. It lets people know how the government, or how the county government spends your money. Because the other side of the clerk's office is the comptroller, and so it's like an audit of where your tax dollars went.
That's Joe Russo's office?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Thank you. I don't think I missed anyone. Captain Moss is here. Captain, you want to give a quick update?
On my belt.
Sure, just a quick update, and if you will, just talking a little bit about our topic tonight since it's relevant. Sherry asked me earlier in the week, and it happens every storm that is significant, is what about all these intersections when the traffic lights are out, what happens? Because it's very difficult to navigate through there. Everyone's a little crazy driving as well. So the last significant storm that we had, what is in place, and I'm sure Michael's going to talk about it some as well, because he's the expert, is that the intersections are evaluated by Palm Beach County Traffic and then also the Florida Department of Transportation. They use drones, they use on the ground, and they use what we as law enforcement report back to them. So if you have an intersection that's having a major problem, and it's a major intersection, let's say last time like Blades at 441, it is possible that there can be stop signs put out there to assist. Those large intersections are probably beyond that, and if they're capable, which most of the important ones are, is if there's a generator available from the county, they will hook it up at that intersection and it'll operate the lights either on flash or as a regular traffic light. But there's no guarantee. There's clearly not enough generators for every intersection in the county. So that's why we remind people that if you come to an intersection, there are no lights on, it's a mandatory four-way stop. And if you're driving around in the storm or after the storm, be careful everywhere. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to jump right into the program because I know Michael wants to get out of here early. I think we all do.
How's the sheriff?
So Michael, you want to come up and give us a presentation on what's going on, what we need to do, and how we can help?
Absolutely, thank you very much. So yes, my name is Michael Jankowski. I'm with Palm Beach County Emergency Management. I'm, among other things, the outreach coordinator, and I always enjoy getting a chance to come out and talk to the community about hurricane preparedness, especially now that the season is getting started. So first of all, let's talk about what a hurricane actually is. By definition, it's a large rotating storm with high-speed winds that form over the warm waters, usually in the Atlantic or in the Gulf in our case. Hurricane season always starts June 1st and ends on November 30th. But the big thing to remember here is, usually when I do this, it's not already hurricane season, but hurricanes and tropical storms don't necessarily pay attention to the calendar. A lot of times storms can form after the November 30th. A lot of times they can form early in May. I remember a few years ago even, we had a storm that formed in January in about the mid-Atlantic. It was really, really bizarre. But it can happen is the biggest takeaway there. So let's talk about the watches and the warnings. So a hurricane watch or a tropical storm watch is the announcement that sustained winds are possible within the specified area within 48 hours. Whereas the warning is an announcement that those sustained winds are expected within 36 hours. Now this is for either a tropical storm or a hurricane. The big takeaway from this slide though is to remember there is a difference between those tropical storm warnings, hurricane watches, and those typical severe thunderstorm warnings that we get, or tornado watches that we get. Those are usually indicative of something that's a little bit more going to happen sooner, whereas these are giving us some time. And the reason that they give us this kind of time, 48 to 36 hours, is so we can finish whatever preparation work that we have, getting those last little bit of supplies, putting our shutters up, determining if we need to go to a shelter, and so forth. Excuse me. So let's talk about some of the biggest danger of a tropical system. And that would be what we call a storm surge. So storm surge is a sudden rush of water because of the winds and the low pressure. And there's a bunch of other things that happen to it, but it's that sudden onshore of water to the coast. Picture it, if you will, if you're blowing on a bowl of soup. You know how that soup kind of goes to one side? It's the same thing with the storm surge. Storm surge is actually the most dangerous part of a tropical system. We end up seeing more damage and more deaths and injuries from storm surge than any other part of the storm. If you remember 2018, Hurricane Michael, when it made landfall in the Gulf Coast, all of that damage that we saw, like in Mexico Beach or I can't think of the name of the county, but all of that area, most of that was from the storm surge, that water that came on shore. So, what can you do? There's 4 steps.
Good atmosphere.
Okay. It's like, do we have a generator? So we have 4 steps that we ask the public to take when they're preparing for hurricane season. One should make a plan, build a kit, get involved, and be informed. And we're going to walk through each of these 4 steps. So making a plan means that you should know if you live in a flood zone or a hurricane evacuation zone. Know that the fact that there are 2 different zones and they are different. And I'm going to explain that in a second. So you want to make sure for both your home, yourself, and any of your loved ones. So what is the major difference? So the hurricane evacuation zones, these are usually those zones that are mostly along like the coast. The barrier island, the intercoastal, or around Lake Okeechobee. We also have a specific zone for this for homes like your mobile homes or trailers or what we call substandard construction before the newer building codes came into place. Some of those areas that have been deemed as a danger to a hurricane, those would be those evacuation zones. A flood zone is exactly what it sounds like. It's a zone, it's an area that has a history of, they do it like in 100 years, a history of significant water and significant flooding. So you want to know which one of those you live in, if you live in either one. If you go to readypbc.com and go to, see this little diagram right here, click on that on towards the bottom of the page, or just click on the Know Your Zone. And that'll take you to a tool where you can type your address in to both and check both of your addresses. I'm gonna step out on a limb here and say West Boca area is probably not gonna be in that hurricane evacuation zone. Flood zone, I know there's some areas around here that are prone to some flooding, so it's definitely worth checking. So next you want to know, with making a plan, if you need to evacuate, where you should go, and how you're going to get there. So we have 2 campaigns that we talk about. One is called Run from the Water, Hide from the Wind. What this basically means is, again, let's go back to what I said about that storm surge being the most dangerous. That's the water. You want to run from that. There's where we're talking about, getting into evacuations and getting into some shelter. And then we talk about hiding from the wind. Most of our homes these days and our buildings are built to a pretty good construction and a pretty good hurricane codes, where we're pretty safe actually sheltering in place. Now I'm not saying don't go, because that's going to be your decision, and there's a couple of other things that we'll talk about. So if you feel that you still need to evacuate, know where you're going to go and how you're going to get there. Biggest reason for that is if you see this picture right here, this was taken during Hurricane Irma. So,
That's my car.
I thought I recognized you. I'm 2 cars behind, no. So what happened during Hurricane Irma? Well, as it was coming up the Caribbean, we were told it was going to be a big storm. They were talking about it being a Category 5, it was going to be devastating, and they were really encouraging evacuation and sheltering. Well, what a lot of people in South Florida did was they decided to get in their cars and head north or head west. These are people that were heading one of those directions. I don't know which one. But let's just say that they were going north, maybe to Georgia. Well, what ended up happening? Traffic got backed up. People started running out of fuel. They started running out of supplies like food and water. Well, what did Hurricane Irma do? Irma saw the party was going this way and decided to follow.
Yeah.
So the key takeaway, what I'm getting at is, it's just that slight jog of a hurricane can make a huge difference in getting stuck or not. So that's why it's important that we evacuate miles, not hundreds of miles. Think about somewhere that you can go, like a friend's house, maybe a hotel, maybe a family member that lives a little further inland or has a stronger home, if you will. But if you feel like you need to go to a shelter, that is an option. Just keep in mind that shelter space will be limited. We do limit it to 20 square feet. That's about 5 foot, yes ma'am.
I was told that if you have a clubhouse, like in these communities, that you can't go to the clubhouse for shelter.
That's up to your HOA. Some HOAs do allow that. Some HOAs have refrigeration for things like medicine, like insulin and things like that. And I've heard that same thing from some HOAs, but I've heard the opposite from others.
So it has to do with the HOA?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's completely up to
the
them.
private club?
I'm sorry?
Like a golf club?
Yeah, golf club, it depends. The HOA that we lived in wasn't in a golf community, but they still had a nice clubhouse. But the problem with that is it was so small, there was no way they were gonna fit everybody in.
Right.
So, but it's worth talking to your HOA.
Right. And one other question?
Yes, ma'am.
You said that the codes would change and we have stronger houses. About what year would they change?
Oh goodness. Well, I know Andrew was one of the big catalysts on that one, absolutely. And then the 2004 season, things kind of got a little bit tighter. They started making sure that we have roof inspections, that wind mitigation when you buy a home. They also make sure that if you do any type of work on your home, like let's say you just say, hey, I'm gonna put in a new window right there. As soon as you do that, you have to have another mitigation inspection. So all of that from between Andrew and that 04-05 season.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. So let's talk about the shelter. As I said, you're gonna have 20 square feet of space. It's a 4 foot by 5 foot box. That's about 6 foot. You can see that for a lot of people, like me, I'm gonna have a hard time fitting in that little box. But it's important that we have to have a space. And because we're gonna have a lot of people from those hurricane evacuation zones taking shelter. So this is just enough room for some bare essentials. Like this picture here, they have some, looks like some medicine, a cell phone with a charger, whatever you feel like you might need for a few days. Yes, ma'am?
Are they gonna make more pet-friendly shelters? Because that's been a problem in the past, where people can't bring their pets to shelters and either have to choose to ride it out in their own homes with their pets, or they leave their pets in their home and run, and that's also not right either. That's a huge problem too.
And I agree, and I know what you're saying, and we're going to talk about the pet shelter in just a second. But to answer your question, I know that it has been talked about and it is in the works. It's just there's a lot that goes into, but it hasn't gone unnoticed, I will definitely tell you.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yes. So, speaking of, Palm Beach County does have 2 special shelter programs in place. One is our special needs shelter program. This is a program that's designed to help those with certain medical conditions that need certain medical support, maybe oxygen, maybe a CPAP machine, maybe something that requires electricity. That's what this shelter is designed for. If somebody's concerned that, you know what, on a windy day I lose my electricity, so I'm going to take shelter, that's what this one is for. And then of course, as we just heard, we do have a pet-friendly shelter, and this is for our fur babies. Both of these shelters do require pre-registration. I'm going to leave this up if anyone wants to take it.
What's the limit? What's the limit on pets per person?
Best answer to that is to call Animal Care and Control. If you're talking about the limit towards numbers, I'm not sure.
There's a lot of people
I know,
plus the pets today.
Absolutely, absolutely. Goes back to to that question too about, and I'll look into that since you brought it up, and I'll try to get back to you on that. But They also do limit the type of pets that they accept. Like, you know, obviously dogs, cats. We actually had a chicken one year.
It was lunch.
So I guess the aggressive dogs are allowed.
I'm sorry?
The pits, the Rottweilers.
Dogs, I mean, they're dogs, so yeah, absolutely. They're, you know, they have to keep in their cages or their kennels and things like that, but they're well taken care of. But the big takeaway for both of these is both of these programs do need to be pre-registered. You can go to readypbc.com or simply call this number 561-712-6400 for the special needs shelter. And for the pet-friendly shelter, that's available through Animal Care and Control. That's a long website. If you just go to Google and type in Palm Beach County Animal Care and Control, it'll take you right there. So you want to plan on how you're going to stay in touch with everybody if normal, everyday communications go south. Be sure that you include out of town, out of state family and friends. How many in the room have family or friends outside of Florida? Just about everybody. This is super important to me, and I'm going to tell you why. 2004 season, I was living in Ohio. My mom, my dad, and my brother were all living down here in Lantana. So, first storm comes through. After the storm passed, I was able to call them, talk to them. Everybody was okay. Great. A week or two later, the second storm comes through. Now, all of a sudden, I do the same thing afterwards. I try to call. There's no answer on the home phone.
That had to be Wilma.
Any of their cell phones. No idea what's going on. I'm 1,800 miles away, and all I see is the news. And what the news is reporting is usually never the good side of the story. Now I'm in panic mode. Make a long story short, what happened was, after the first storm came through, when they thought there was no damage to the house, when the second storm started brewing, that's when they noticed there was a separation in the roof. My brother, who was living with them, decided we're going to a shelter. They forgot to call. Yeah. So, big takeaway, and that's why this slide means the world to me. If you're in a hurry like they were, and you don't know how, I don't have time to call people, take your cell phone and just change your voicemail. All you have to do is as simple as, hi, this is Mike, I'm going to a shelter, I'll call you when I can, boom, that's it. What's gonna happen is if cell phone service goes out, if I lose my phone because the battery's dead and I can't charge it, what's gonna happen is when my kids in Ohio call me, they're gonna get my voicemail. They're gonna know I'm safe.
Where in Ohio?
Northeast Ohio, Youngstown.
Oh, get out of here.
I'm sorry, you invited me, why are you kicking me out?
She was born in Youngstown.
Really?
From Youngstown.
I'm from Cleveland.
You and I have had that discussion, I remember that now.
So,
Her uncle was my pediatrician.
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah. Very good.
Funny.
Such a
Sorry, excuse us. Little joke.
Wasn't expecting that.
So, our next step is we want to build a kit. How many of you have your disaster preparedness kits already built? How many are going to have them built after this? I'm coming back. Okay, so what do you want to have in your emergency kit? Obviously water. 1 gallon per person per day for recommended 5 days. We used to say 3 to 5 days, but to be honest with you, after Michael and we realized how much time it takes sometimes to get help to people, 5 days is the better number, just to be safe. Also, when we say 1 gallon per person per day, don't forget your pets. So if you got your rot and your pit, make sure that they have water too. They should have a gallon.
4 cats.
What's that?
4 cats.
Hey, they get water too.
Yeah.
Canned goods, foods, snacks. If you're gonna have canned goods, don't forget the can opener. You're gonna be really bummed if you can't open your applesauce. If you don't have a can opener handy, another thing you can get are those pop-top cans. I love those things because it's so much easier. Battery-powered radio, flashlights, extra batteries, personal hygiene supplies. We're gonna want to make sure that we're bathing ourselves and taking care of our personal hygiene one way or another. So maybe an extra pack of baby wipes. Books and games. We wanna make sure that we're keeping everybody occupied when there's no power and there's no television. Trust me when I tell you, how many of us have kids? We know what happens when kids get hot and bored. Having board games, books, puzzles, things like that for them to do is going to keep them occupied. And honestly, the whole family occupied while you're waiting for things to kind of get turned back on. Baby food, formula, diapers, again, pet food, paper products, plastic utensils. You may not have a way to wash your standard dishes. Cash. Having cash on hand is going to be super important. In the event that power is out or the internet's out. Let's say power comes back on, but the internet's still out. Banks, ATMs, stores that take credit cards aren't going to be able to take your credit card. But I'm going to tell you right now that as soon as Publix can open and they're on a generator, they're going to open. They're going to want to go ahead and get you your supplies. Having cash is going to help you get those supplies much, much better. I always recommend having small denominations. Don't have 50s and 100s because you're not going to get change. 20s, 5s, 10s, 1s, that kind of thing. How much cash should you have is really a judgment call. I kind of base it on how much we normally typically spend during the week and maybe triple it, just to have it. If you're going to an evacuation shelter, make sure that you have extra clothing, some pillows, and some blankets. So I intentionally skipped over prescriptions and over-the-counter medications. So you want to make sure that you have medicine in your kit, whether it's those over-the-counter medications like your flu medicine, allergy medicine, stuff for upset stomach, cough medicine, things like that. But what about prescriptions? There's a statute, there's a Florida law called Florida Statute 252.358. What this statute reads, there's certain conditions that have to take place. We have to be under a hurricane warning. The governor has to declare a state of emergency. And I believe the EOC needs to be stood up, which is all probably going to happen. And the governor has to put this caveat in the bill. When he does that, and this is in effect, you can go back to your pharmacy and get another 30-day prescription on your refills, even if you just got it filled yesterday. Mm-hmm. They'll deal with insurance and stuff like that after the fact. This is a Florida law. This is so that you have medicine just in case we're without power for 3 weeks or longer. You will have that extra batch of medicine.
Does that cover into controlled substances?
So I'm not 100% sure on that. I've been asked that question and I can't seem to find that answer. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't think so because
I don't think so.
Very
hard to pull things out of the pharmacies these days.
And that's very, very true. That's something definitely talk to your pharmacy about. And the other question I get is, well, what if I have the mail-in prescriptions? I get mine 90 days at a time, but it comes like through Amazon. Another suggestion is to talk to your doctor and have a second script, just a 30-day script on standby that you can take to Publix or Walgreens or wherever you get your prescriptions filled, just so you can make sure that you're going to be covered. So our emergency kit should have a few extra things. Identification. Make sure that you have at least 2 forms of ID. One, like your driver's license, your state ID, and the second one, like a utility bill. Reason I say this is in the event that your neighborhood sustains some damage and you're ready to go home, get back to your house to find out what's going on. A lot of times law enforcement is going to stop people from going into your neighborhood. 1, for safety. They don't want anyone getting hurt. 2, for security. They don't want anybody going in and looting. The only way you're going to be able to get to your home is if you can 100% prove that you live there. So having your driver's license and maybe your electric bill will definitely help you with that. Medical cards, medical insurance cards, homeowners insurance, renters insurance, flood insurance policies. While I'm on that, how many of you have flood insurance?
I do.
I'm sorry? You do? So there's a few. If you don't have flood insurance, let me encourage you right now, tomorrow, call your agent and look into it. It's pennies on the dollar, and it's well worth it. Flood insurance is
$500. $500 a year, and I don't even live in a flood zone.
It's how much?
$500 a year, and I don't even live in a flood zone.
Okay.
I don't have a mortgage.
Gotcha. So flood insurance is not generally part of homeowners or renters insurance. That's why I hone in on this. It also takes 30 days for a new flood insurance policy to go into effect. So before season gets really, really crazy and we start getting a lot of rain, it's really worth looking into getting that. Having copies of birth certificates, list of medications, legal documents such as wills, leases, mortgages, things like that. Pictures and family memorabilia. Pictures of the house and property. This is for insurance reasons. So that 48 hours, 36-hour window I talked about at the beginning, that's a good opportunity to take your camera, go outside and start taking pictures. Take pictures of your house, inside and outside. All of your property, your TV, your microwave, your computer, your car, whatever. The reason, and then after the storm passes and you have damage, take a picture of that damage. That way you can go to your insurance carrier and say, here it was before, here it was after, it wasn't pre-existing. Having those pictures is going to help you with the insurance claim process should you sustain damage. One little trick that I'll share with you on this one, a place that you can put everything, especially this amount of stuff, in the dishwasher.
And turn the
Does that
water
mean my
off.
time's up?
And turn the water off.
Well, yeah, obviously, I tell also, unplug it, turn the water off, whichever. But dishwashers are by design meant to keep water in, right? So by design, they're going to keep the water out. It's a really good place to keep stuff. Next is getting involved. So an involved community truly is a resilient community. We approach emergency management by what we call a whole community approach. That means everybody. That means our firefighters, our police officers, our deputies. That means our political entities, our mayors, our city councils, everybody, including you. There are a bunch of ways that we ask the community to get involved. Volunteering with us at the Emergency Management at EOC. We have a volunteer and an internship program. Community Emergency Response Team, or CERT, Salvation Army, Amateur Radio, United Way, American Red Cross. These are all fantastic ways that you can volunteer and get involved. Is anybody in the room a CERT, by the way? CERT, Community Emergency Response Team? Really? Oh, you guys gotta get CERT going back out here. I think we've talked about that in the past. So CERT is it's a volunteer program made up of citizens that are trained in certain things like emergency preparedness, and then for some emergency response doing light search and rescue, light fire suppression, first aid. They are really, in my opinion, and I'm the program manager for this in Palm Beach County, to me they are our first responders. They're going to get to you before fire and EMS sometimes can. And that's why I love that program. It's definitely worth looking into. We're always doing training. We're going to be starting it up again in the fall, and I believe we will be at the Palm Beach State campus in Boca Raton because we're doing it through a partnership with them. And we also started a new Teen Cert program for the teens also. It's a great program. But how else can we help in our community? How about neighbors helping neighbors? We can go door to door in our neighborhoods and ask, hey, do you have supplies? Do you need water? Can I help you put your shutters up? Do you need transportation to a shelter? Or even, have you pre-registered for a special needs shelter? I see that you use oxygen. It's something you might want to think about. Helping with evacuation, as I said. How about helping after the storm? How about going back door to door and saying, is everybody okay? Do you need any more water? Can I help you take the shutters down? Bear in mind that once the storm passes, we need to get those shutters down as quickly as possible. It's a lot of HOAs, it's a code violation if you keep them up, but it's also a huge public safety issue. Because if something happens in your house, let's say a fire breaks out in the house, and the fire department has to come and break in, they're not gonna be able to get through those shutters. So that's why it's important that we get those shutters down. Lastly, be informed. How about signing up for Alert PBC, listening to local media, downloading our DART app, and following us on social media? How many in here are signed up with Alert PBC? A few hands, okay. Everyone else is gonna sign up for it after because you'll love this. So Alert PBC is our county's emergency notification system. Essentially what this means is we are going to send notices out about a bunch of different things. This is different than those Amber Alerts we get on our cell phones. Those ones that go up at like 3 o'clock in the morning. Why they do that, especially when it's in like the panhandle. But anyhow, you sign up for the type of notification you want, whether it's weather related, police activity related. You can choose a variety of different locations that you want to get notifications on. For example, I have mine set up for my home in Atlantis, my office at the EOC, I have it set up for my wife's office. I had it set up for my stepson's school, but he graduated. And I have it set up for my parents' house in Lantana. Well, why would I have it set up for my parents' house? Simple. They don't watch TV. And they hardly ever listen when their cell phone goes off. Sometimes their volume is turned down, so they don't even hear it vibrating or anything. To me, that's a concern. I want to make sure that they're safe. So by me having my alert PBC set up for something that's happening in their neighborhood, when I get that notification, I can call them on the phone and say, hey, something's coming, you need to take shelter. You can sign up to get phone calls, text messages, and or emails. You can even choose what time of day you want to be notified. Now, by default, we don't send anything out between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. But hey, there's a lot of people that are early to bed, early to rise. You know, hey, I got to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I go to bed at 8 o'clock. Okay, shut it off so you don't get those. You can set it up so that, like for me, for example, I don't get flood watches on mine. I live in South Florida and it's the rainy season. I know it's going to rain. So that was my decision. You might want that. Yes, ma'am.
How do you sign up for?
I'm going to tell you 1 second. I have it on there? No, I don't. Okay. So signing up is 100% free. Your information is always safe and secure with us. We don't sell information off or anything like that. To sign up, you simply go to www.alertpbc.com. Now, when you do that, you'll see where it says Everbridge on the top of the screen. It's the same one. Alertpbc.com is just a shortcut. So it goes through a company called Everbridge. But I'm telling you, when you sign up for Alert PBC, it's fantastic. I love, especially this time of year when we have all those thunderstorms and everything, I get those notifications. Okay, so we talked about being informed. Tuning into your local news before, during, and after. Well, what happens when the cable goes out? Well, this little fella right here, you can get this. This is an indoor TV antenna. You can go to most retailers like Walmart, Best Buy, you name it, Amazon. My wife and I bought one on Amazon. Plug it into your TV, follow the directions to make a few small changes, and when you do this, you'll actually be able to get all of your local channels for free. And there's a good 50 channels, depending on the strength of the antenna. But I realized something else with this too. Remember what I said earlier about keeping the kids occupied? What else are they going to be able to get on TV? PBS. What is PBS from? Children's. Exactly. I'm going to tell you right now that you put a kid in front of an Elmo's on TV, it's quiet. So another great opportunity to keep the kids nice and quiet. So our DART app. This is our disaster awareness and recovery tool. This is another great way that you can help us. And remember what the deputy said earlier, Captain, I think he was? What the captain said earlier about like traffic being out or damage being in certain areas. This tool will, first of all, help you prepare for an emergency beforehand, and it will help us after, because you get to report to us and tell us where some damage is. For example, planning and preparing. This has a list of evacuation zones, shelters, and some of the information that I've already discussed this evening in making a plan, building a kit, and getting involved. It'll also list where all of the shelters are. So, Boca Raton High School? West Boca, there we go. So, in the event that something was coming and we were opening up shelters, we may not open up all of the shelters. If we know this storm is just gonna hit like North Palm Beach, like Jupiter and that, we may only open those because it's gonna be sunny and fine down here. So you want to be informed. Check and see, hey, maybe is the shelter open, so that you know if you, again, want to go where you're gonna go.
Are these schools equipped with generators to keep the power on?
Absolutely. That's why we chose them for our shelter program. Yes,
And
absolutely.
the hospitals are independently on generator,
Yes.
the local hospitals.
And a lot of the stores and gas stations are now too.
Our Publix are.
Publics are.
Target is to.
BJ's,
Yeah, a lot of them are.
BJ's, the Chevron,
So, oops, hey. Go back.
Wilbur taught them a good lesson.
There we go. Okay. So reporting damage, this is what I was saying. You can see the like levels of damage over here. This is where you get to tell us where some damage is. You can punch in the address, tell us the severity of the damage. So what happens when you do this is at the EOC, we have computers all over the place, and one of them is our damage assessment reporting. When we start seeing a bunch of green dots in West Boca, we know we got some problems there and we need to get some help there quickly. So by you reporting that damage to us, it's going to help us determine where we need to start looking at. Lastly, following us online. We are available on Facebook, Palm Beach County Division of Emergency Management, Twitter at PBCDEM, and on Instagram at PBC_DEM. And of course, there's always our website at readypbc.com. Our website is loaded with so much information, even more than what I've already provided tonight. On top of that, you can also get a great copy of our hurricane planning guide. It's a PDF, you can print it, you can share it. It's also available in English, Spanish, and Creole. So we cover, some of the big bases there to make sure that our community is always prepared. That's my last slide. I'm gonna open it up for a couple minutes for questions. Yes, sir?
The hurricanes are circular storm systems, and I've heard the term used that the right side of the hurricane is the so-called dirty side of the hurricane. Can you explain
Yes.
what that means, please?
Let me go back to, we'll use this picture here. So let's say that this big one here, okay, this is our hurricane. If the hurricane is moving this direction, so it would be moving due west, what they're saying is the right front quadrant, relation to how it's moving, the right front quadrant is usually where the strongest winds and rain is. It just happens the way it's wrapping around and everything. So once you're in the eye of the hurricane right here, like this little spot where my dot, that would be like the most dangerous, if you will, part of the storm, because we know that the eye wall has the strongest winds. So that right front quadrant is what we want to look at.
Isn't that the left? I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. You're saying right front?
Okay, let's do it this way. Let's say that, yeah, because it's a little confusing. Let's say that this little fella's moving north, okay? It's going this way. So this side right here would then be the dangerous part.
Does that have anything to do with the Earth's rotation and?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of science to the whole thing, absolutely. Any other questions?
Why was it that the second time around, Wilma did most of the damage in 2005?
Because there was already probably so much damage to begin with. And
But they said it turned around.
For that one, you know what, I don't know. I wasn't living here at the time, so I've never really, you know what, it's really the nature of the beast.
It's a calm of the storm for about a half hour, and it came back around, and all the enclosures went down.
Well, and that's a big misconception too, because a lot of times people see the storms here, all of a sudden now, hey, there's blue skies, the storm is past, I can go outside. You're not realizing that you're actually in the eye wall. And that's where, again, a lot of those injuries and things come from, because you get caught off guard. Because as soon as the back end of that eye wall comes ashore,
Boom.
I'm sorry?
I said boom.
Boom, exactly, absolutely. Any other questions for me? Who's gonna sign up for Alert PBC now?
Everybody.
Everybody.
Everybody, and you know what, we're going to put a lot of this information on our website. Fred, who films, will also capture that. That'll be on our Facebook page as well.
Absolutely.
The whole presentation, because I know a lot of people have been participating in our meetings via Facebook.
Absolutely.
And watching the video. So, excellent information.
Thank you very much.
I
Again, thank you
mean,
for
so
letting
many-
me wait up. Next time you're in Ohio, go ahead.
Not to go. So that leads us to our communities being prepared and what everybody does in their communities. I know before our storms, we're always in contact with Palm Beach County Fire Rescue. We're in contact with Captain Moss. He was talking about me asking him about the stop signs that I think it was after Hurricane Francis or Jean or maybe Wilma, when West Boca, we joined forces with everybody emergency operations centers to make sure that we had the stop signs at all of our intersections. And at one time, the sheriff's office had hundreds of stop signs in buckets and concrete that they could take out there. It's my understanding now that they actually rent the stop signs from like a Bob's Barricade or whatever to provide them so that they're not all at the sheriff's office. So that's good. So within your communities, and we of course will push out information as we get it, and if you're on our email list last week, you would have gotten information from us on Lake Worth drainage and the storm coming, and if your community could open your weir, or if they could not, which in last week or 2 weeks ago I guess it was, no community was given a permit to open their weir. And we did survive. I know a lot of people were concerned. We had a lot of phone calls about streets flooding, and I think there's a misconception on really what flooding is. We go outside and you see water in the street and you immediately say that, you know, we're flooding. Our streets, our front yards, our backyards, our side yards are all designed to hold water. And it only becomes a flooding issue, or not a flooding issue, a drainage issue, when it has not drained after 48 hours. That's how Palm Beach County judges whether there's a drainage issue or not. In a lot of cases, the storm drains the drains are full or they're clogged. And they're clogged not necessarily in the culverts, but on top, where palm fronds have come down and have gone down the flow to where the drain is and sit on top of it. Now, I know as a community manager and all the managers that work with me, we all have brakes and boots in our car, so that prior to a storm, we go out, we check all the grates. After the storm, we're out and we're raking anything that's off the drainage grate. Everybody that lives in a community, it's something that you can do to help yourself, especially if there's one right in front of your wall. And he talked about the eye of the hurricane. And that is when I would suggest you run out as quickly as you can and get anything off those drainage grates, because it will save you. Because those grates, you only need a handful of palm fronds, and that water certainly it will back up. And you also notice in your house, you have a step before you get in your house. That too is for flood purposes. So it would take a lot of water for most of us to actually get flooded. But again, flood insurance is a great option. If you're on a lake, you have a pool, and last week's storm, 2 weeks ago, that was a lot of rain. And it was a lot of rain fast, and then the next day it was a lot of rain, then the next day was a lot of rain. But fortunate, I don't think anybody had any waters in their homes, not in West Boca. So even in areas where we know there are flood issues on Lyons Road, there was no one that suffered any damage that I'm aware
A
of.
little bit on Judge Wintercroft on a curve. That's a problem spot.
Right.
And during Hurricane Wilma, we had the lift station, the raw sewage was coming up.
So
in
during
one of the
Hurricane
country
Wilma,
landings.
and after that, I mean, there were a lot of communities that the
Didn't
lift
we buy a
stations.
generator?
Yep, the lift
And
stations
gave
were
the
down.
county the option to utilize it?
The lift stations were down, and yes, there were so many communities that had raw sewage, and I'm going to give credit where credit is due, and that is Frank Barbieri.
And Tropical Storm Isaac, I was coming from West Palm Beach, and I got a credit. The turnpike, you couldn't see, but it's a full drainage evacuation road. There was not a drop of puddling. I was barreling through with tractor trailers, but when I got to Glades Road by the school, Sandpiper Shores was all the way in the street. And I'm just fearful that the sewerage will overtake and back up into my toilets.
Well,
And come
again,
out through
I'm
a
gonna go back
shower.
to Frank Barbieri, who after that one season where we did have a lot of sewage backup, that Frank worked tirelessly with Palm Beach County Water, utilities, and that was to purchase generators. And so many communities did purchase generators. And if you
With an agreement to lend it
they
to
were
the
all,
county
they
if
were all
they needed
stored,
it.
and Palm Beach County maintained them, and to this day, there are hundreds of generators, and if you ever notice, prior to a storm coming, you'll see a lot of these generators being put into place, so that we don't have that problem. Is it a possibility? Absolutely, we don't know what's gonna happen. So, yes, Frank worked on that for a good year to ensure that our communities had that option, and since then, Palm Beach County has actually purchased a lot more.
A lot of them been replaced, there's a lot of new ones out there.
There's a lot of them going in Boca Chase right now, they're replacing one.
Mhm.
So, the county has stepped up and they are taking care of that, so we don't have that issue. So, back to getting your community ready and in your home, everything that he said, but you still, anybody here on the board of directors?
Oh, not on your board, no.
No, I mean in a community,
Yeah,
a community
yeah,
board.
yeah.
So when somebody asked about the clubhouse and the refrigeration, some clubhouses, and again, it's up to the board, may allow you to utilize the clubhouse, may allow you to utilize the refrigerator for medications. But again, it's only as good as if they have a generator to keep it going. So certainly something to look into and check with your club. And you're in Boca Woods? Yeah, I would be surprised if you didn't have a generator. So it's absolutely, a lot of communities will allow the homeowners to utilize the refrigeration. Fred?
I'm from Century Village. As you may know, we have 3- and 4-story buildings. I happen to live on the 4th floor. I'm not interested in flood insurance, am I, John? It's just for ground floor.
Ground floor.
Sure, thank you.
Right.
Sherry,
Flood insurance is only for water that rises. So during a hurricane, if you've got damage from your roof and the water's coming down and the inside of your house has water all over and you have water damage, that's not flood insurance. That is your property insurance. So there's a big difference. If the water's rising and it's coming in because of a lake or a canal, that's where your flood insurance.
Or the sewage overtakes it.
Well, sewage, it would not be flood insurance. That's your homeowners, that's your property insurance.
I don't know about that. You'll exceed the $10,000 that you usually have on the flood insurance on a regular policy.
I don't believe that flood insurance covers sewage.
Those commercials on TV with the floods and FEMA are very frightening with the walls all wet and everything.
Nick, you have a question?
Who determines when the weirs need to be opened in a community?
Lake Worth Drainage and South Florida Water Management. And I mean, if you notice, Loggers Run's high, Mission Bay's lakes are always high because South Florida Water Management very, very rarely releases water.
We had a pipe break to the meter last week on Windermere Lane and Country Landing 3. They came out to fix that pipe because the lake was 3 houses up the road. They couldn't get that dredge. As much as they were digging and sucking water out, dug the whole front of the house out to get to that pipe. The water was secreting in through the ground from 3 houses down.
Question? Somebody got a question?
If the clubhouses, if the communities need to.
If you have a transfer station, Palm Beach County Water Utilities has the generators.
Oh, okay.
It's a fenced-in area,
So
you'll see a big
right,
piece of
there's-
machinery.
You'll see, right, there's a fenced area, and there's usually a light, and it says if this light is on or if it's flashing, whatever, to contact Palm Beach County Water Utilities. But I do know that they've been out working, upgrading a lot of the transfer stations,
If
and
you
that's
go
where the
into
generators
Mission
go.
Bay, on the corner there where the Wings Plus place was, there's one right in there fenced in, on the corner of Glades Road as you go.
Right, and
into
there's
that
a lot of transfer stations.
That'll show you what one looks like.
In West Boca. Yeah, we're here, you have any questions or, and we will put stuff up on our website, on our Facebook page, and anything we can do to help you in your communities, please let us know. That's what we're here for. If you notice anything prior, any issues prior to the storm, you're on the boards, get the information out to your homeowners. I think probably one of the biggest problems is once they say there's a storm coming, you get all these homeowners that run out and start trimming their trees and taking the dead palm fronds down, and that's exactly where our flooding is coming from. I know a lot of communities that they tell their landscaper the day before the storm's supposed to hit that at the last moment, we're going to do a drive-through through the entire community. Any landscape debris, the landscaper's taking it. They're going to bill the homeowners because you've got to protect everybody else. So for whatever reason, people tend to want to go out there and start trimming, and that's the worst thing for the community. So, and now's the time to trim your trees if you can find somebody that'll do them. I know the landscapers, they're booked now probably through August. It's still not too late though. Get it done if at all possible. So, and a tip to communities that the state statute that you're allowed to remove trees that are a structural issue or a safety issue, that you have only until July 1st that you can remove those trees without a permit, without having to replace them. So I know a lot of communities that have black olive trees and oak trees that were bringing up the sidewalks are removing those trees, but it has to be done by June 30th, because July 1st they adjusted the language in that statute that you will have to go back and replace the trees. You're going to have to get a permit if it's on common area.
In common area.
If it's only on common area only, if it's on an individual lot, on your lot, and this excludes condominiums. If it's a single family lot and there's a tree that's causing damage to your sewage, to your driveway, sidewalk, you are permitted by law to remove that without a permit, without replacing it. Because for many years, you took out a tree, you had to replace it with 3 trees. Well, you're just continuing the problem where
There's an allotment that they will remove also on a pickup day.
correct.
Or else they'll tag it.
Well, I mean, if you're having a tree taken down,
They usually take it.
who's ever taken it down really needs to haul it away.
But if the homeowner does it, puts excessive, it'll stay till next week.
Right,
Where
they
you
put a
call
red
one
tag
out,
on
You
it.
have
Don't
to
do
pay
that.
for it. That happens all the time.
Norman, you want to share any experiences? You're a community,
No, not yet. Next meeting.
okay. So, before our next meeting, we're not going to have a meeting in July. We're going to have a meeting in August where we will have candidates. We'll also have Dorothy Jacks. That'll be out talking about our tax bills that are coming. But before that, we have the great 4th of July celebration out at the park, and it's a big one this year. It's the 40th anniversary of Palm Beach County Parks and Recs. So it is going to be a big deal this year, and I believe the band is a tribute band to Journey.
Yes.
So, it'll be great. We'll have a table there. We are going to have flashlights, that they are, Ellen, do you have a flashlight?
No, I don't have one in this.
I don't
bag.
have one with me.
usually do.
They're the best flashlights, and we bought a ton of them. They are great flashlights. You can keep them in by your bed, can keep it in your car, in your purse. They're good flashlights. So we'll have a table there, and we'll be giving those out, and probably giving out some stuff for the kids. But there'll be a lot going on at the park, so make sure you go. South County Regional Park, where the amphitheater is.
Free admission, everything's.
Everything's
Everything's
free.
free. We'd like to say the first time, when the park opened, there were probably 500 people there the first July 4th. And
Now
the
you
last
can't
time
get
we
in
had
there.
a count, it was 6,000 or 7,000.
Wow.
I don't know.
That's
But-
insane.
And it's all the grounds, and it is, if you're a resident
I
here, it
believe
is really special.
The doors open at either 6 or 6:30, but a lot of people like to go out first thing in the morning, and they have their tent set up. I don't know if you've been out there, it's amazing. They've got the one lake where you can, at nighttime, if you go out there and watch the sunset, it's
Beautiful.
gorgeous. They have a lot of professional photographers out there nightly taking pictures, but people have their tent set up, they've got their barbecue set up. This year is going to be a big deal, so I encourage everybody to come out and see us.
That's my sanctuary, that park.
We're excited about it. We're excited that this year we get to do it in person. The fireworks go off at 9 p.m.
Wow.
I have a very good relation with George LaCosta. What's his title there with the park?
I don't know, Eric Hull is the director of
Okay.
Parks, and
He
Eric
must be under
unfortunately
George.
is going to be,
Because I jet ski in that park, and there's always issues. But he's very receptive.
I think you're crazy to jet ski in that,
Well,
whenever I drive by there, I think, oh God.
The alligators?
The gators, you know, I go,
You
I
see one
have,
at night at sunset or sunrise, that's all.
you know what?
Once the jet skis go in, they go right down.
I go to the dog park every single day. I have fur babies, and
I've been
they're
on him.
boss, so I go there every day, and I don't remember, no, if you all remember, It was all over the news, TMZ.
The lady that got bit trying to
The
save the
lady
dog.
that got bit, and
And
she
she
was
survived.
walking her dog alongside the lake, and the dog's feet went in the lake and was grabbed by an alligator. And this woman, I believe she's
She was
70,
gutsy, she punched the
74
gator
years
loose,
old.
got it loose.
She jumped in the lake and pounded on the gator. The gator let go of the dog,
And she got bit.
and it grabbed her arm. She continued to pound. It let go of her arm. She got the dog. The dog, the poor thing was cut so badly, bitten so badly. Her arm was. The dog survived. I see him every single day at the dog park. She never again goes to the down by the lake. But there are some people at the dog park. I shake my head that they say, oh, they're walking over by the jet skis to let the dogs in the water. I would never. I would never. Every time I look, I think, oh God, it scares me. Because there are some big gators, and I don't care what time of the day it is. I've seen
No,
them.
they're out there at sunrise
seen
and
them.
sundown, and they
They're out
just
sunning in
coast
the middle of the
along.
afternoon. You never know. But that's your risk, not mine. Anybody else have any questions? Good, so we will see you on the 4th of July. Bring everybody, it's gonna be a great time. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you.